Hello friends, today I take up a new topic and the name of the topic is Legislature versus Judiciary. The lesson plan includes why is it in the news, number 1, number 2 introduction, separation of power in India, constitutional amendments to bypass the judiciary, function of judiciary and its assertiveness, judicial activism, public interest litigation, doctrine of basic structure, judicial overreach, and finally conclusion. Friends, if you like my channel, please share and subscribe AJIS Academy and subscribe this channel on YouTube and you will find numerous videos covering different topics related with competitive examinations from UPSC to State Civil Service Examination. So friends, now let us start the proceedings. Why is it in the news? Now you might have learned from newspaper that the Supreme Court set aside the suspension of 12 BJP MLAs, describing it unconstitutional, illegal, irrational. Friends, you might be knowing that the BJP MLAs, 12 MLAs were suspended by Maharashtra Speaker, Legislative Assembly Speaker, on the ground of disorderly behavior. So what you see that when they approached to the Supreme Court set aside, because this suspension was for 1 year, not for one session. It was for 1 year. So Supreme Court rightly intervened and set aside the suspension of 12 MLAs for 1 year. Now the Speaker accepted the judgment to avoid any bitterness and clashes. Maharashtra Legislative Council Chairman met the President of India and sought judicial review of SC order on suspension of MLAs. And friends, as you know that on 29th January, SC ruled that suspension of 12 MLAs for 1 year following alleged misbehavior in the House was unconstitutional, illegal and irrational. The Chairman and Speaker requested the President for judicial review of the Supreme Court judgment whereby 12 BJP MLAs suspension was set aside. Now, the allegation of the Chairman of Legislative Council and Speaker is that the judgment of setting aside 12 MLAs by Supreme Court is just to overstep the domain of legislature. And so they allege that the doctrine of separation of power, that is a basic feature of our constitution, and Supreme Court already gave verdict in Keswanand Bharti versus State of Kerala, whereby the separation of power as the basic feature of the constitution. Now, this basic feature of the constitution was transgressed. Now, they also allege that this judgment of the Supreme Court was not in consonance with the Article 190, 194, 212 of the Constitution. The judgment is against the basic structure of the Constitution as laid out in the case of Keswanand Bharati in 1973, as I have already told you. The memorandum said that this judgment curtailed the power of a Speaker of Legislative Assembly and Chairman of Legislative Council to conduct the House in orderly manner. So what you see, it is now very difficult to maintain decorum in the House. So these are the allegations that has been leveled against Supreme Court, and the memorandum has been submitted to the President of India for intervention. And so they requested the President of India to have judicial review in this judgment. And the chairman of the council alleged that the judgment is a interference in the functioning of the legislature. Next. Now, these were the allegations. And now, friends, I switch over to another heading, and that is introduction. Number one, you see that there are three organs of the government, and that is executive, legislature and judiciary. Now the executive implements the law, it governs the country. There are two types of executive. One is temporary executive, and they are also called political executive, and another is permanent executive. Those, they are bureaucracy, they are permanent executive. So judiciary settles disputes in accordance with law and interpret law. So judiciary has also the power of legislature when it interprets law. Now legislature makes laws, and that bill becomes law when President sign over the bill passed by both houses of Parliament. So these three organs have clear-cut demarcation about their role. Now, this doctrine of separation has been the special feature of the US Constitution. US Constitution. And the doctrine of separation was invented by the French philosopher Montesquieu. Now, the purpose of doctrine of separation is to avoid concentration of power in one organ of the government, so that there should not be arbitrariness or there should not be interference in the domain of other organs of the government. But you see that because of the emergence of the concept of welfare state, we see that there is increasing power of executive, because now executive or the government works so many things for the betterment of the people and society. So because of the concept of welfare state. Now what you see, that the domain of executive has become very much enlarged. Rules, regulations are being made. There is another concept of subordinate legislation, whereby Parliament delegates its authority to executive for the formulation of rules, regulation. So what is it? That the domain of executive has become very much enlarged on account of the concept of welfare state, and that's why what you see, that now the doctrine of separation of power cannot be tightly compartmentalized. Now we'll discuss it later on. Why? Because whenever there is a legislative void or executive inaction, it is the bounden duty of judiciary to come into the play and take the constitutional responsibility to fill the void created by legislature or by the inaction of executive. Now we switch over to another heading, and that is separation of power in India. Friends, as you know, that legislative powers have conferred on union legislation and state legislature under Article 245 and 246 of the Constitution. Similarly, the executive power of the union and state are vested in the president and governor of that state under Article 53 and Article 154 of the Constitution. Similarly, provisions relating to union and state judiciary have been made in Chapter 4 of Part 5 and Chapter 5 of Part 6 of our Constitution. Following provision reflect the concept of separation of power. Number 1, Article 121 and Article 211 restrict discussion in Parliament and state legislature with respect of the conduct of any judge of the Supreme Court or a High Court in discharge of his duties. Simply put, it means that the conduct of judges of High Court and Supreme Court cannot be discussed in Parliament or in state legislature. Again, by Article 122 and 212, the courts are prohibited to inquire into the validity of the procedures adopted by Parliament and state legislature. This means that on the ground of alleged irregularity, the courts cannot interfere or cannot arm itself under judicial review to interfere with the legislative works. So what you see, that there is a complete autonomy as far as the conduct of houses are concerned. Court cannot interfere on the basis of irregular procedure adopted by state legislatures or Parliament. The President and Governor will not be accountable to court or answerable to court for the discharge of their duties as President or Governor of a state. So, no organ is authorized to exercise their power beyond their jurisdiction. The separation of power, a basic feature of the Constitution, and that has been enumerated in detail under the case of Keswanand Bharati versus the state of Kerala in 1973, and whereby Supreme Court declared that separation of power is the basic feature of the Constitution. Now, what we see, that the constitutional amendment to bypass the judiciary. So friends, as you, the name of our topic is legislature versus judiciary. So now one by one we will describe how there has been a tussle between legislature, I mean parliament, and state legislature versus judiciary, I mean Supreme Court or High Court. So what you see, that the first amendment was brought in 1951 and it was provided with 9th schedule. Friends, as you know that in the original constitution there were only 8 schedule. Now it has increased to 12th schedule, and the 9th schedule was put into our constitution to restrict the judicial review. In the 10th schedule it is the Anti-Defection Act under 52nd Amendment, and in 11th schedule it is 29 items to be governed by Panchayati Raj system, and in 12th schedule there are 18 subjects which are to be governed by municipal government. So there are 12 schedules in our constitution. Now friend, what you see, by 1951 9th schedule was created in the constitution, and it was created for the purpose of keeping Zamindari Abolition Act out of the purview of judicial review. So now what is the situation? About 284 acts. 284 acts are under 9th schedule in order to save it from judicial review. Now, but the Supreme Court has made it clear that from 24th April 1973, any act which has been passed after 24th April 1973, the date of the judgment of Keswanand Bharti versus State of Kerala, all these acts will come under the purview of judicial review. Courts will have inherent right to test those acts, whether these acts are constitutional or not. And if they are unconstitutional, if they are not in consonance with the constitutional provision, the courts may declare ultra vires those acts. So this provision of 9th schedule has been very much diluted by Supreme Court now. Now friends, what you see, that in Sankri Prasad versus Union of India, what you see, that Supreme Court declared that Parliament has inherent power to amend any part of the Constitution. But in 1967, in Goloknath case, Supreme Court just reversed its earlier decision, and it said that Parliament has no power to amend fundamental rights of the citizen. So what you see, now the tussle started, and we will describe later. Now what we see, that by 4th Amendment 1955, Parliament made the compensation given in lieu of the acquire of property beyond the scope of judicial review. This means that the acquisition, compulsory acquisition property for the public purposes cannot be questioned in the court of law regarding the quantum of compensation. The government will decide about the compensation and that will be final. And so the judicial review was kept beyond the compensation in lieu of the acquire of property, acquisition of private property. Again, by 24th Amendment 1971, the power of Parliament to amend any part of the Constitution made it compulsory for the President to give his assent to the constitutional bill. Friends, as I have already told you, by Goloknath case in 1967, Supreme Court asserted its authority and said that Parliament has no power to amend the fundamental rights of the citizen. Now, in retaliation, Parliament by 24th Amendment 1971 insisted that the Parliament has power to amend any part of the Constitution, and again it made compulsory for the President to give his assent to the constitutional bill. So President of India will have no choice either to return that bill, which is constitutional amendment bill, or to withhold that bill, or to keep as a suspensive veto. So he will have no choice but to give assent on the constitutional amendment bill. So his power was completely curtailed. Now, by 25th Amendment, it provided that any law made to give effect to the directive principles of state policy under Article 39 B and C cannot be challenged on the ground that it violates Article 14, 19 or 31 of the Constitution. By Amendment 38, 1975, it widened the power of the President, empowering him to make ordinances or law during the time of national emergency. And Supreme Court or judiciary will have no power to question the legality of that ordinance or proclamations. So, the ordinance or proclamations issued during the period of national emergency was kept beyond the scope of judicial review. Now, under 39th Amendment 1975, it put disputes relating to election of the President, Vice President, Prime Minister and Speaker beyond the scope of judicial review. And this amendment was brought because of the fact that the then Prime Minister Srimati Indira Gandhi election to Parliament was quashed on the ground of illegality. So what you see, that to counter that judgment, Parliament brought 39th Amendment 1975 and it put disputes relating to election of the President, Vice President, Prime Minister and Speaker beyond the scope of judicial review. And again, by 42nd Amendment 1976, directive principles of state policy were given predominance over fundamental rights and the power of judiciary was restricted under Article 32. So, friends, what you see, that the power of Parliament and its assertiveness became broader during the period of national emergency, which was imposed in 1975. So now, what is the function of judiciary? I have already told you, friends, that judiciary has two functions. Number one, it sets disputes. In earlier class, I have told you that Supreme Court has manifold powers. One of its power is original jurisdiction. For example, if there is a dispute between two states, or there is a dispute between one state and the central government, then it is within the power of Supreme Court that it will decide the disputes between the unit and the central government. No other court can entertain the disputes between the central government and state government. So this falls under the category of original disputes. Again, Supreme Court has appellate power. It is the supreme appellate authority in India, and now it has more power than its predecessor, Federal Court, because the judgment of Federal Court can be appealed in the Privy Council, which was situated in London. Now, after our independence, now Supreme Court is a final appellate authority. Again, it is a court of record. It interprets Constitution. Law is what Supreme Court or judiciary says. So, its judgment is the law of the land, and every court is bound to implement its judgment. So, what you see, that Supreme Court has got vast power in our country. Again, its another function is to interpret law. And I have already told you that if any law has been passed by parliament or state legislature or executive, it will be challenged in judiciary. Judiciary, I mean Supreme Court and High Court, will test the act passed by legislature, whether that act is in consonance with the constitutional provision or not. If it finds that the certain acts passed by a state legislature or parliament are not in consonance with the constitutional provision, it will declare that act ultra vires, illegal, and will strike down. It will declare null and void. So what you see, Supreme Court is the ultimate authority as far as the interpretation of the Constitution is concerned. It is the guardian of our Constitution, protector of our Constitution, protector of the fundamental rights of the citizen. So now we switch over another point, the power of judicial review, and I have already discussed in detail as to what constitutes judicial review. And now, for the sake of your knowledge, I will just tell you that in 1803, the concept of judicial review evolved in America, and that the case was Marbury versus Madison. And the Chief Justice Marshall declared that any law that has been passed by Congress which is inconsistent with the American Constitution will be declared illegal. So, from 1803, this concept of judicial review evolved, and now it has become the part and parcel of the judiciary all over the world. In our country, the judicial review and the power of judicial review can be found in Article 13, 32, 226, 141, 142 and 144 of our Constitution. And friends, as you know that under Article 13(2), it says that any law or act which is passed and which curtails or take away any fundamental rights under Part 3 of the Constitution or abridges, then it will be declared null and void to the extent of the contravention of the provision under Article Part 3 of the Constitution, which narrates about the fundamental rights of our citizen from Article 12 to Article 35. So, in Vineet Narayan versus Union of India, the Supreme Court noted that issuance of guidelines in exercise of the power under Article 32, read with Article 142, has become an integral part of our Constitution. Jurisprudence pointed out that such an exercise of power is absolutely necessary to fill the void in the area with legislative vacuum where there is inaction by executive. The judiciary must step in to exercise its constitutional obligation. Under Article 141, the law declared by Supreme Court is binding upon all the courts within the territory of India. Court is a source of law, and I have already discussed in detail as to how court interprets the existing laws. So, law is what the court says. So, in short, court is a source of law. The law is what the court says it is, and all civil and judicial authorities in India are bound to act in aid of the Supreme Court under Article 144 of our Constitution. Under Article 142, the Supreme Court can pass such a decree which is necessary for the complete justice in any matter before it. Now the Supreme Court is vested to prevent the obstruction in the stream of justice, and that's why it invoked Article 142. Again, the judicial review protects fundamental rights of citizens. A legislative competence to enact a particular law which is in consonance with the provision of Constitution. Now we switch over to judicial activism. Friends, as you know that in recent years, since 1980s onward, Supreme Court and higher courts, now they have started the principle of judicial activism. What is its meaning? An active interpretation of any existing provision with a view to enhancing the utility of legislation for social betterment. It is to probe into the inner functioning of the other organs of the government, outcome of inactiveness of the executive or legislatures. So, whenever court see that certain things are not being implemented by executive or the important laws which is very much necessary for governance, that is not being passed by particular legislature or parliament. Now, because of this inertia, the country and particularly the weaker section of society are to face innumerable troubles. Supreme Court can fill the void, and this is called judicial activism. Now, that's why we see that under Article 21 of the Constitution, which is about right to life and personal liberty, that has been enlarged. Now, it also includes a healthy life, a better environment, an unpolluted environment, where the basic necessities are fulfilled. It curtailed the power of police as far as the handcuffing is concerned, and made so many guidelines for the protection of prisoners. I have given detailed lecture on the topic of Article 21 of the Constitution. Please see my video. Now, in the field of bonded labor, child welfare, human welfare, care homes, human dignity, protection of prisoners, protection of environment, enforcement of public duty, right to privacy, Supreme Court has done commendable work by delivering judgments on these subjects. Now, judgment in tainted legislators, criminalization of decriminalization of consensual sex under section 377, decriminalization of adultery, judgment of euthanasia, right to die with dignity, judgment on honor killing, whereby declared that the choice of consenting adults to love and marry, they have the consenting adults have right to marry the girl or boy according to their choice. So, judgment against honor killing, and you might be knowing that in the certain state of northern India, these honor killings incident occurred frequently, and so the Supreme Court just interfered and gave the verdict against honor killing. Again, now we switch over to public interest litigation. You see that it was to give justice to the vulnerable sections of society. Friends, as you know that as per the provision, only victim can approach or move the court for the redressal of their grievances. But by this new concept of PIL, Supreme Court relaxed this provision. Any person, any public spirited person, can move the court even by writing a letter about the problems of the people, of the vulnerable sections of society, because of the ignorance, because of the poverty. More large section of people can't approach the court. So now, by PIL, the scope of the court has become very much widened. Large number of people got benefit out of this new concept of public interest litigation, and this is the need of the hour, because even at present 20% of our people are living below the poverty line, and the bottom 40% people are still struggling to eke out their livelihood. So its importance cannot be minimized. By way of PIL, Supreme Court and Judiciary High Courts have widened its scope, and it gave help to poor and marginalized. Thus, now in adversarial system of trial, what you see that it requires lot of documents, and everybody knows that a poor person have very much difficulties to gather documents on which judgment will be delivered after trial. So the poor and the marginalized section of society are always at disadvantage in court, and so the Supreme Court and the judiciary evolved a new formula that whenever this type of case comes up, it will appoint commissioner to collect all kind of material by appointing commissioner who will visit the spot, and then this report will be submitted to the concerned court, and the court thereafter will give both the parties the report of commissioner, whereupon the trial will start. So this is also an innovative method by which the poor, the downtrodden, the marginalized section of society get justice. Now this is another important heading, and that is doctrine of basic structure. And friends, I have already told you that by its judgment in 1973 under Kesavanand Bharati versus State of Kerala, Supreme Court innovated a new doctrine, and that is called basic structure. Supreme Court said that the Parliament has power to amend any part of the Constitution, even the Article 368, which is the amending power, which is the amending article of the Constitution. But Parliament or state legislature cannot change the basic structure of the Constitution. And what is basic structure? It was never defined by Supreme Court or judiciary till now. But we know, if you gather the different judgments delivered by judiciary, Supreme Court or High Court, we find that number one, separation of power, or sovereignty, integrity of India, or parliamentary form of government, or republic. So for want of time, I am not going to describe all the important features of the Constitution delivered in different judgments by Supreme Court. So you see that it said that you can't change the basic structure of the Constitution. So now Supreme Court and judiciary are with vast power in its armors. Now another topic is judicial overreach. What does this mean? The purpose is to give justice to the poor. An alternative route to redressal of grievances when executive have become inactive. Again. Now, friends, I want now to conclude what conclusion I derived from this lecture. Number one, judiciary only overstepped when there was legislative vacuum or executive inaction. Number two, the Supreme Court has valiantly fulfilled its primary responsibility of upholding its constitutional goals and obligations. Number three, protected weak and downtrodden section of society. Number four, judicial activism is like safety valve in our democratic system. Friends, why I am telling this? Suppose a particular problem is not being sorted out by executive or by legislature or state legislature or parliament, then where is the another avenue for the redressal of grievances of the people? Now this is the Supreme Court or judiciary to act as safety valve. Friends, as you know that if there is no safety valve and when the anger or dissatisfaction of people are piling up because of the inaction of executive or legislature, what will be the outcome? The outcome will be that people will take arms in their own hands to subvert, to change the system. So this will not be a good things for all of us. So in order to strengthen our democratic system, judiciary acts as safety valve. Whenever it feels that it has the constitutional responsibility and obligation to fill the void created by legislature or executive. So friends, now I am winding up my lecture. If you like my lecture, please share and subscribe my channel AJIS Academy Indore. This is free channel. Please share and subscribe and boost my morale. Thank you very much.